laugh at me. All right. I did forget the numbers, didn't I? The things I will do for this recovery program, like 9 years ago, I said I was never leaving. I was leaving and never going back into another prison. One person could put me in an inmate outfit, and that's Pastor Jeff, and it's not scrubs, yeah. I just wish it was an extra large because the shirt is really, really tight, and that gut is going to be hidden behind the iPad tonight. But I am Eloy. I'm still a grateful believer in Jesus. I'm still struggling with being up here. I'm still struggling with fighting those demons. And so we're talking about preventing relapse. And I titled tonight, Guarding the Freedom You've Already Won. And when Jeff had this costume, he was like, the next person that does their testimony should wear it. And I'm like, or lesson. I'm like, that's me. I couldn't even change dates to get out of it. Like, I still had to change dates and still got put in it. So, but there's a reason I'm wearing it, and there's a reason why when I had this lesson, I had something a little bit different. But then I went back on past experiences. And I was like, how can we talk about relapse in a different way? How can we talk about preventing relapse in a different way? Because obviously, yes, we do need to come to recovery programs. We do need to have a sponsor or an accountability partner. We do need to pray. We do need to do things like that. But those are just small things. We need to talk about some bigger things too. And sometimes we can do this by ourselves, and sometimes we might need help. And when I was coming up with this, I was like, how did I prevent things when I first got out? And I was rebuilding my life. And so relapse really happens in an instant. It's a gradual progress that begins in the heart and the mind long before any outward action ever takes place. Prevention isn't just about saying no to those bad decisions or those bad choices. It's about building a life where those choices lose their pull. And a couple scriptures that I thought of, and one is obviously Proverbs 4:23 that says, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows through it. And then 1 Corinthians 10:13 says, the temptation in your life are no different from what others experience, and God is faithful. He will not allow the temptation to be more than you can stand. When you are tempted, he will show you a way out so that you can endure. So I wanted unconventional, and I thought about this, and I've had plenty of time to come up with this lesson. I wanted new, kind of uncharted, but unconventional prevention strategies. So while standard solutions focus on the accountability, the avoiding triggers, and the prayer, which are still all vital, hopefully some of these new creative strategies add an extra layer to our defenses. And the first one is pattern interruptions. So the concept is an addiction and a habit loops run on automatic tracks. When a craving hits, your brain enters that hyper-focused state, and willpower alone struggles against those chemicals. So how do we kind of manage that? We have to force a physical sensory shock to break that loop. Some of these words are big, and I didn't use them. I had some help cleaning it up. So we need to step immediately outside in some fresh air, take some breaths, slow breaths. We just need to kind of remove ourselves as we can from that situation. And obviously we need to call somebody, whether it's a friend, but don't talk about those cravings. Don't talk about what you want. Talk about anything else. If you're a baseball fan, talk about your favorite team. I was gonna say the Cardinals, but I'm not a Cardinals fan, but just talk about your favorite team. But don't keep thinking about what's bothering you. Don't keep thinking about that craving. When you redirect your brain outwards, that breaks that loop. Another one is we talk about pre-scripting a way out. And I've tried this one, and it works if you work it. So the concept is we often wait until we're in the heat of that temptation or that relapse to figure what we need to do next. But in that moment, our brain just went offline. We're no longer focused on anything except for that beer or that fix or that website or whatever it is. But if we script a way out that you can put on your phone, put in your wallet, however you need to do it, what we need to do is we need to write down a very detailed if-then type playbook where you have clear directions, you're calm-headed when you write it, and you know the next step. So, for example, if tonight when I go home and I'm feeling depressed or I'm feeling lonely, what do I need to do? Probably put my phone down, pick up my journal, and start saying, all right, this is how you feel. Let's go with this, this string right here. I joke, but I have a pair of rollerblades. And I've gone around my block a couple times as it's getting dark outside just to get out of my house. Because I know if I stay in there any longer, I'm going to keep beating myself up over this. I'm going to keep focusing on that. Or if I'd have known this then, I might not have gone to the liquor store to get that next drink. But if we have scripts that say, hey, I'm feeling this way, so let's do this, that may help. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's worked. We need to remove that decision-making from that moment of temptation. So if we have it written down, we have an answer. One that I haven't tried that was suggested to me from somebody else that I've talked to when I was working on this is on your phone, put an audio note. I've known people that in their addiction or just in general life, they've put notes of encouragement on their mirrors that say, hey, you've got this, or whatever it is. I don't like mirrors, so I'm not going to put it on there because I don't want to see sometimes all of this. But that's for another day. But put an audio note on your phone. So the concept is guilt and shame will push people towards relapse. But if we remember why we chose our freedom and our sobriety, that'll keep us grounded. Amen. So the out-of-the-box idea is record a minute or 2-minute voice note. Keep it to yourself. And when you're feeling in that zone, or you're feeling in that way that you feel like you might relapse, play it. Take that breath and play it. Because a sober you is going to remind a temptation or tempted you all the benefits of staying sober. So play it. And if you need to, send it to a friend. That way they can send it to you. But going back is not worth it at all. And obviously we know that reading the Bible and having that biblical mindset is something we need. Romans 2:12 says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed in the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what is good, pleasing, and perfect will of God. Relapse prevention requires renewing the mind daily. And it is something we need to do. I'm guilty. I don't pray all the time. When I'm in my car, I'm praying for the car in front of me to get out of my way. But that's not the prayer I need to make. And everybody's relapse is going to look different. I struggle with anger. I've struggled with alcohol. I've struggled with pornography. I struggle with just being me sometimes. You might struggle with food, or you might struggle with the self-image. And everybody's relapse is not ever going to be the same. But the thing is, the Bible never changes. So my struggle may be a little bit different than yours, but what we read and what we're supposed to know applies to everybody. One relapse isn't bigger than another. We all struggle together. We all succeed together. That is what this program is about, is helping one another. I mean, like I said earlier when I was on stage hosting, I've sat in these chairs for the first time, scared out of my mind, ashamed. But the thing is, I came back. Still scared, still ashamed, still nervous, but I came back. Now, as soon as Pastor Jeff said amen and we did our serenity prayer, I was out the door. But I had a friend bring me that knew that I needed help when I didn't even know I needed help. And I kept coming back, partly because I was couch surfing and it was a free meal. But that free meal turned into realizing that I had a problem. And we don't tempt you with the food to get you in the door. It's just a bonus. But you made the commitment to come through that door, whether there was food or not. And I had to apply what the Bible taught me. I had to understand the Bible, because up until that point, I went to church when I was a kid, but it was Catholic church. Somebody say, really? That's your wife, Burgess. Your wife said that. So, I don't know where to go with that. Thanks. I was trucking along till I heard, oh God. But I grew up Catholic. I didn't have this type of church. You went, you got your exercise while you were at church, the kneel, up, down, this thing, all that. You got your exercise, you got your donut afterwards, you went home. There wasn't this type of family atmosphere. I had to learn about the Bible as an adult. And at that point, my mind is already in a different direction. My mind is not about the Word of God. My mind is not about recovery. My mind is not about anything like that because for so long, I didn't know what it was. I had a hard time saying I love you to random people. I had a hard time saying I love you to Pastor Jeff. But as I transformed in my mind and I listened to other testimonies and other stories, I started realizing there's some power behind this. Amen. There's something that actually works. When I was doing this and I was talking to my mom about different things, she said, do you remember that we tried to go to a CR in Houston? No. She's like, we went to a church and you were so adamant against it. Well, obviously, I didn't want to be there. And I don't remember anything about it. But that was the Lord opening that door, saying, hey, when you're ready, I'll open another one. When you're ready, I'll open another one. And when you're ready, I'll keep opening those doors. Again, I totally forgot that I even went to one. And I thought our numbers here were huge. My mom said there was probably 300 to 400 people at this program. That's Houston, so I mean, that's chump change for them. But I had a praying mom who also didn't know a lot about the Bible because she wasn't raised in church. And when she did go, oh Lord, it was Catholic church, just so we got that out of the way now. But I had a praying mom who didn't know anything but just to get on her knees and pray for her son. And that's where that biblical wisdom comes in. That's where we have to have that mindset shift. Because we have to renew our mind daily. And we have a lie that just one more time won't hurt. But that's the lie. It will hurt. It'll hurt ourselves. It'll hurt our kids. It'll hurt our parents. It'll hurt our siblings. It'll hurt anybody around us, our best friends, anything like that. It will hurt them. We may not see it at that point. When we went to that CR in Houston, I couldn't even tell you the year it was. But I was probably in my early 20s. So at least 20 years ago. Oh. Thinking about that scares me because I'm like, But I'm not old. I heard that. But that one more time won't hurt was hurting. Or when we say, I've already messed up today, so I might as well just go all in with it. That's the other lie, because you can get out of it. It may not feel like it, but you can get out of it. You just have to want to get out of it. You've got to put tools in place to get out of it. So the truth is, God's grace is present right here in the middle of this moment, in the middle of your struggle. And a slip in your tongue or a stumble in your path does not mean that your progress is completely wiped out. It's just a stumble. Get back up. When we were learning how to walk, we fell. But what did we do? We got back up. And that's the same thing. If you stumble, cry out for forgiveness. There's been plenty of times when I was wearing the all white, not the orange, that I cried out. If you don't know the all white, we all know, right? I didn't get the Bob Barkers. Burgess was really upset that I didn't get the cool blue Bob Barker shoes for this, but enough is enough, you know. If you know what I'm talking about, we'll just leave it at that, all right? If you don't know what it's at, ask somebody. They'll tell you what the Bob Barkers are. I've got a couple questions and I got a couple other things to talk about. So a couple of the questions that I was trying to come up with, because I want you guys to go home and think about life and think about where you're at. Because here in a few minutes when I get off stage, we're going to celebrate. And we're going to love on the people that have made milestones. And we're also going to be there for people that are struggling, that want what those other people had. So sometimes we need to be asked questions that are uncomfortable, and sometimes we just need to have questions that are a different perspective. So one of the questions, and I'll phrase it kind of funny, so forgive me how my mind is strange, and you can ask some other leaders, they know that. So we need to identify the pre-relapse. Like, we'll know if we're going to start struggling or if we're going to have those cravings. And again, a relapse will often start in subtle mood changes. Isolation, slacking on our habits, our health. So the question to ask you is, what is your personal yellow flag that warns you when you're starting to drift off before that becomes a full stumble? The other one is, we need to expose the lie. And obviously we knew what the lies were. What lie does temptation tell you right before you give in, and what specific scripture or truth directly dismantles that lie? For me, I'm a new creation. I gave up this uniform 9 years ago. I chose to live a different life. Now, some of that was because I had 2 kids, and neither one of them were going to let me stumble. And I had a family that was tired of putting up with my bull. And I had to make that commitment to myself first to give them what they wanted. The other one is we have to evaluate our environment. 1 Corinthians 10:13 promises God will always provide a way out. So in our daily life, are we actively looking for that exit door? Or do we tend to linger near the room where the temptation lives? If you're an alcoholic, stay away from the liquor store. If you're addicted to porn, put a lock and an app on your phone. If it's pills, change your doctor. We also need to redefine grace. How does knowing that God isn't surprised by our struggles change the way we respond to how we feel when we're weak or tempted? Obviously, know that God loves and God forgives. We also know that God forgets. And I know it's hard for us because we remember everything. Everything. But knowing that God will never turn his back, will never forsake us, will never leave us. Why are we surprised that those are true when we know that his grace is more than enough to handle what we're going through? He sent his son to die for our sins, to die for our relapses, to die for our struggles. So why are we surprised when that doesn't change the way he loves us? So I kind of wanted to bring this into comparing jail to our addictions. And obviously, when you're in jail, you have rules, guards, you've got physical bars, they're dictating when you eat, when you sleep, obviously what you wear. You lose your basic freedom of your daily life. In addiction, compulsion and chemical dependence take over those decision-making drivers, and they get in the driver's seat. A person often feels like we're a passenger in our own body, and we're forced to prioritize that addiction above our personal goals, our own values, our health, and our relationships. Another way that an addiction is kind of related to jail is the isolation from the outside world. Obviously, if anybody's ever been in jail, you know that you've got a window a little bit bigger than this phone, and it ain't going nowhere. So in jail, physical walls separate us from our loved ones, milestone events, and even a normal daily life. In our addiction, an invisible emotional wall does the same thing. We struggle with an addiction. We sometimes often withdraw out of fear, out of shame, judgment, or even the need to keep our struggle hidden. Even when we're sitting in a crowd or with our family, We completely feel isolated from all of that in our own minds. And I remember one time I got arrested, and I was like, it's the end of the world. Like, I can't go in public anymore. I'm going to have to, like, change names, identities, hairstyles, move out of state. But that was in my mind. Because when I got out and I had to go to Walmart, nobody knew who I was. I was just the same Eloy. I was putting all that pressure on myself. There was a couple people that knew. But that's a minor part of a bigger picture. We're always going to be our harshest critic. Always. We just have to learn how to turn that criticism into a confidence builder. Another way that we can relate our addiction and our possible relapse to a jail sentence is we're always living in a constant state of fear. I couldn't tell you the amount of times that I've stood on the stage and I've listened to people's testimonies and they're talking about how they were always looking out the window because they thought the cops were there. Or a noise in their house, they thought somebody was listening in on them. We laugh, but it's true. It really is true. We're always living in that fear of, when does that next shoe fall? When are they going to come get me? When is that beer magically going to happen to pop in my hand and I take a drink? So in jail, the environment requires high alertness, constant caution, and living under a cloud of ongoing uncertainty. In our addiction, our body's nervous system is stuck in survival mode. The ongoing fear, whether it's the fear of that withdrawal, it's a fear of running out of resources, it's a fear of getting caught, or having just to face our consequences. That creates a relentless background noise of anxiety, doubt, and sometimes just being plain scared. Then, in the world that we live in today, social status. A heavy weight of living with some type of stigma because you've messed up. And the greatest thing I can say is we have a group of leadership here, not just on Mondays, but on Sundays that will stand up here and say, I struggled, I messed up. Our pastor is one of the first ones that I will see come on a recovery platform and talk about his struggles. Not just on a Monday, but on a Sunday. And he's our pastor. He's our shepherd. But that makes him relatable. And if he can do that, we can. Because at the end of the day, I'm just Eloy. That's just a Burgess. That's just anybody. In jail, having a criminal record carries a heavy, stigma. That's sometimes finding a job, a house, anything like that, a little bit more difficult. In our addiction, our misunderstandings surrounding that addiction often lead to harsh judgment rather than empathy. And again, we're judging ourselves. Overcoming the shame attached to that can feel like an uphill battle when we're trying to rebuild a fresh start. And I'm telling you, if anybody like myself can go through all the CRAP that I went through, that I put my family through, and still come out the way I have, anybody can do it. You just have to want to do it. You have to put that foot first. And you have to sometimes accept those consequences. And then there's always hard work of trying to just truly break free. So in jail, re-entering society requires structure, unlearning survival modes that we had to learn while we were in jail, and actively building a stable foundation. In our recovery, we've got to have that stable foundation. You can't build a house on sand on the beach and expect it to stay there during a hurricane. Unless you have the proper footings, you have the proper foundation, you have the proper structure. And sometimes it's not cheap and it's expensive. But we've gotten ourselves into this position that sometimes we have to get uncomfortable to get comfortable. So in addiction, recovery isn't about stopping a behavior. It's about tearing down that mental wall that keeps us trapped. It requires learning new coping tools. It requires building a stronger accountability system. It requires doing those intentional, daily things that we need to do. And I'm not going to gripe a lot about journaling because I've said that a whole bunch. If you don't want to journal, I was shown this app the other day. And if I can get my phone to unlock now, because why not? It is called How We Are Feeling. Log into it. And it tracks your emotions, it tracks things. You can put a quick statement on there about how you're feeling that day. I have it set to go off 3 times a day: breakfast, lunch, and before I go to bed. Because, hey, I'm happy before I go to work. Everybody is. And I get, some of them are laughing because I know that's not always true. And if you see my blood pressure results lately, you know that is definitely not true. They're like basketball scores. They're triple digits all across the board almost, but that's for another day. But I've only been doing this for a couple days with this app because I was just shown it the other day. And when I've been digging into it and putting in that work, I can go back and look at a certain day and see how I was feeling. I can go back over the course of a time and see if there was triggers that were popping up. Because if we can keep a record of when we were here before we fell, we know that we may need to fix something up here to keep this from happening again down here. So you don't have to journal. You can do it. You can do an app. You know, if you have an accountability partner, keep checking in with them, because they'll remember when you were having a good day, and they'll remember when you're having your bad day, and they'll help you in pinpointing some of those things. Another thing we need to do sometimes is we need to build a boredom tolerance. So a hidden trap that we sometimes face is we prepare for heavy emotional storms, but relapse sometimes only happens during those flat, unexciting downtimes. And our brain can, it craves dopamine. So when our life just feels level, our body has that urge to create some type of excitement, even destructive excitement. So what do? We have to realize that freedom just isn't about surviving in those hard times. It's learning to sit comfortably in that quiet, mundane time. Crossword, or get a coloring book. I'll get a coloring book. But do something that just takes your mind off being bored, that gives you a little bit of excitement. One of the things that I've struggled with this, and I'll be completely honest, I've struggled with this a lot lately, is I love designing things. And over the last 6 months, I lost that passion. And that passion sometimes kept my mind going. And I just stopped doing it. For here, for work, in general, I just stopped. And that mundaneness was hard, because now I have all this free time and I don't know what to do with myself. Instead of doing what I love and just creating things and thinking about things and reading about things that interest me, I just sat at home on my couch or slept, because I got bored. But there were times in that boredom that I struggled, that I was like, if I have a drink, they won't know. But the Lord will. And sometimes he gets back to our staff and our leadership in mysterious ways. And I drive a very distinct truck. So if my truck is seen at a store down the road, there's going to be a question asked. But you have to learn to fight that boredom, but with positive things. Another one is sometimes we just need to have a psychological reset. When an intense craving hits, the brain enters a fight or flight state. Trying to outthink a biological nervous system hijack with willpower rarely works, because the logical brain is temporarily, again, offline. So what do we need to do? We need to calm our body. We need to hit that reset, unplug it, plug it back in. If it didn't work, unplug it, plug it back in. Eventually, text support will pass you on to somebody else. But we also need to learn how to calm our body before we can change our mind. And I know sometimes in the heat of a relapse, it's hard to calm our body because we're looking for that thing that we crave. But again, that's where you just need to step away from the situation, play that audio, read that play script that you have, call your sponsor, get away from that scenario. Sometimes, just take a couple quick breaths, through the nose, out the mouth. Hold sometimes when you're doing that for a couple seconds, and then let it go. So, a couple things I need to wrap up on. Some ways that we can handle some things when we're going through that craving is, again, and simple one is just say no and pray hard. Sometimes you need to keep busy. I was talking to somebody today when I was getting my hair cut. And if you're here, great. I can't see you if you're watching online. Thanks for the haircut. But we were talking. And a lot of times people are like, you do so much around here at this building. And I'm telling you, this building brings me so much peace, so much joy. And this building also keeps me from going to other places, from going to other areas of my life that I could sometimes want to go back to. This building is a safe space for me. And sometimes we need that. A church may not be someplace you want to spend a majority of your time at. But if you like to volunteer, if you're good at building, join a Habitat for Humanity. Give back some way, somehow. One of the most humbling things I ever did was when I was 17 and we had a hurricane come through Houston. And I went to my middle school that my brother was at the time. I was like, where can we help? And like, what can you do? I don't know. But I remember giving back because they lost things that we didn't. And I've always tried to carry that, especially as I came into recovery, is giving back when some people don't have anything. And our leadership team has been the same way. They give back because they've been sometimes in those shoes. So keep busy some way, somehow. And then again, change your environment. Avoid those bad places. Change your route. If it's work, I can't help you. I can't give you a job. But you might need to try to get a different shift. Or talk to somebody and say, hey, I might need a different position. But change those environments, because sometimes that's just the easiest thing. So then when I was on my way up here, doing what I do best, yelling at cars that are driving too slow in the left-hand lane, I had to get out of that lane into the right-hand lane because I was relapsing. I was letting my anger get the best of me. But in that moment, I threw my phone out and I said, hey, I gave myself a voice note. And I was like, when you get to the church, rephrase my thought. And so my thought was like this. When you relapse, don't beat yourself up for those relapses with the size or with that relapse. But forgive yourself and acknowledge the fact that you know you still have work to do in your own struggles. So then I threw it to the chat GPT and I'm like, make this sound English. Because I reread that and I'm like, what were you saying? But the thing is, if we experience a setback, don't get trapped in that guilt. No matter how big or small it was. Forgive yourself. Forgive yourself. Forgive yourself. But learn from it. And accept that recovery is going to be an ongoing journey in your life that is going to create and require daily effort. The other option it gave me was stumble doesn't erase your progress. Instead of beating yourself up over this relapse, Extend grace to yourself. Acknowledge where you are and stay committed to that growth ahead. So, a couple of key elements to make this work. Shift your focus from the shame to responsibility. Guilt keeps people stuck in our past, while responsibility moves us forward. We have to separate our identity from that action. We need to frame that relapse as an event rather than a personal failure. We need to frame that as just a small blip in all of our life. And we need to normalize this process. Come to a meeting here on Monday night. Go to Sanctuary Church on Tuesday. Go to a normal church on Wednesday. Go to Nettleton on Thursday. Go to Paragould on Friday. If you're in Pocahontas, go out there on Thursdays. There's always going to be a program somewhere, because sometimes that's what we need. Some of us always need structured programs. I've been doing this for, I think we said 12 years one time. I'm old. I forgot. I'll probably be doing this for another 12 because I know I need it, because my family depends on it. I depend on it. But it gives me peace. It gives me courage. It gives me accountability. But it gives me hope. And it's shown me love. And it's shown me that I'm not in it alone. That you don't have to be either. So I hope tonight, in all of my ramblings, I've helped. If not, Jeff is there. Tell him, don't put me back on stage for a while. But thank you guys for being here. Thank you for making the choice. Thank y'all for watching online.